Hello and welcome to the Web Platform Podcast. I am your host this week, Justin Ribeiro, and welcome to episode 81, Building Tools with and for Chrome DevTools. Today we have the very heralded Mr. Konrad Zevinel. Hopefully I got it right this time.
You were pretty close, I must say.
Yeah, I can barely speak English. You know this.
Yeah, well, my surname is actually hard even for Polish people, so it's equally hard for everyone. So, yeah. Glad to be here.
So tell everyone a little bit about yourself, Konrad, for those who don't know you in the web community.
Sure.
Which I find hard to believe at this point, but...
Wow. Okay.
You make great tools.
Yeah, well, that's my thing. I kind of like to make tools that do not exist, but I guess we'll talk about it later. So I'm a web developer for Poland, and I worked on many startups and software houses, and well, many places. I started at working on backend, but then I saw how slowly backend is moving and how fast and unpredictable frontend is. So, I just switched at some point, and now I'm a front-end developer, and I love it, absolutely love it. I love the fact that there are so many APIs, libraries every day that it's impossible to know about everything. This is awesome. And also the community is great. I mean, this podcast rocks, and there are so many others. So yeah, what else about myself? I do open source, and I really like it. It's like my hobby. It's kind of sad in a way because, yeah, I mean, you do programming for work, and then you go home, and you should do something fun. And the fun part for me is doing programming again.
And you're fairly prolific in the open source community, I would say. I mean, you release a significant amount of stuff.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm not sure. Like looking at Zeno or Paul Irish, it seems that I don't know where they have time to do all that stuff. This is amazing, but I'm trying. I mean, it's not my goal to produce a lot of stuff, but I just like it, and that's how it turns out. So yeah, I guess that's it. At this point, I have like 8 years of experience in both backend and frontend. And at some point I got in love with Chrome, then Chrome DevTools, and then I started creating extensions. Yeah, and that's how my story went.
So how did web development lead you into extensions? Because I'm always curious, like extensions, while being very webby in and of themselves, they've changed a lot over the years. And it's not necessarily one-to-one web development, so to speak. The APIs can be a little bit different. You have a little bit more access, a little less access in certain cases. Like, how did you dive into it? Like, what was the turning point? You said, you know what, it's time to build an extension.
Yeah, I think it was like 4 years ago when I was using Redmine for bug tracking in my then company. And I decided that I would really like something that will tell me how many issues are assigned to me in the form of the button that you have in the browser, like probably most of you guys have Gmail, a little Gmail icon that tells you how many emails you have in your inbox. So I wanted the same for Redmine, to just know how many issues are assigned to me. And I looked at I started digging and looked how Gmail extension is built, and it's pretty simple. So I just made a local copy, changed a few lines, and then it just worked. And it blew my mind that it's so easy to, just take some other extension, modify it a bit, and you have your own. And this was a start. And then, other guys in my company saw that I have such a nice thing, and they also wanted it. And I just shared a zip file at the beginning. Then I found out about Chrome Web Store, that I can actually submit stuff there, and that's when it started. And I'm in love with extensions since then, because they give you this a little more than just web, let's say. But you can connect this to like mix web HTML5 APIs and additional Chrome extensions APIs, and you can build really amazing stuff. It seems like there are no limits for what you can build. This is great, and this is a good feeling.
And extensions have kind of sort of gotten a bad rap in certain cases, because there are bad actors in the extension world that sort of just don't quite understand the concept of probably should not be running on that thread all the time. Did you find it hard to initially get started building extensions? I mean, if you know the web platform, as you just mentioned, it's fairly simple because you have a lot of access to those APIs. But why start on Chrome? Why not Firefox's API, for instance?
Well, I guess at the point where I started building extensions, Chrome was my primary browser, so it was obvious to me to start that way. After some time, I actually tried building extensions for Firefox, but this was much harder, and they don't give you such a nice way of debugging, and it's more cumbersome, and I dropped it. So yeah, I stick to Chrome. And what was the rest of the question?
How did you find getting into the APIs? Like, what was your initial sort of impression of them? Was it hard to sort of get started using sort of the Chrome APIs that sort of make extensions do a little bit more?
Actually, no. The docs are amazingly good. I mean, I guess we can put a link in the description of this podcast later on. But docs are really readable, and they have like videos explaining stuff, and there are examples of small extensions that use certain APIs. It was plus on Stack Overflow, there is of course a special tag for Chrome extensions, and it's super active. So it was really simple. Yeah, and this was one of the things that kept me running and kept me interested in extensions, because it was so simple to work with them.
So it's one thing to say, hey, I want to write an extension. You, like myself, have written code labs around creating Chrome extensions. I mean, we've talked about this, just like Chrome Dev Summit and other places. But it's another thing to say, I'm going to write a tool with Chrome extensions. I mean, how did you say, I'm going to build some better tooling? What was your web development tipping point that said, I need a tool that tells me some things?
Yeah, I mean, the ideas mainly come from myself. I mean, I see that I'm missing some tool that I would like, and then I think, hey, I know how to build it. So I just, sit down and start hacking. And after a few hours, I have the first MVP. If it's running, I'm trying to, make it a bit better and post it to Chrome Web Store, see what others are thinking. And if it's, if others like it, I'm still improving it. But the main idea and the starting point for almost every extension is that I see some gap in tooling, something that I would like, something that would make my life easier, and I just make it.
And you've come up with some great tools, things like CSS Diff, DOM Listener extension. You've got Snappy Snippet, which is just a few. Like you've written quite a few across the board. What is you talked a little bit about the process. I mean, how long does it take you to go from nothing to that minimal viable product? I mean, some of these tools seem, for what they do, to be quite complicated, but do the APIs that Chrome gives you and the APIs available on the web, does it make it simpler these days?
Yeah, actually, that's the beauty of extensions, that you can build something working, something meaningful in just a couple of hours. It's just a matter of knowing what APIs are available and connecting the dots that you can, use this API and then pass the information to another API, and voila, you get what you wanted. So this is actually pretty simple. But some extensions took, like building MVPs was pretty fast, but some extensions took significantly more time, like snappy snippet. To make it good, it took I don't know, but I think that couple of weeks. Plus I got help. Actually, this is also exciting. I got help from a Google engineer that decided to just jump in and help me make it better. So this was great, and that's what I love about open source, that you never know who will find it interesting and join and help you. And I learned quite a lot from such collaboration, so it was great.
And for the listeners out there who don't know what Snappy Snippet is, tell them a little bit about it. It's a great tool for extraction. I just love it.
Yeah. So actually, this tool started from a Stack Overflow question, because at some point I got hooked up with Stack Overflow and started answering questions. And I found a question that got quite a lot of points, but was never, let's say, satisfied or answered. Someone was looking for a tool that will help him extract a single element from the website, but not just HTML, but all connected CSS with it. So I started thinking, if I can build something like that, if there is a demand, it actually, I thought maybe it's worth doing. Maybe people will use it and like it. And also, I started thinking that it would be useful to me, because sometimes when I'm, for example, reporting bugs, it's nice to isolate single elements and have it in JSBin or whatever. So so I started thinking about that and figure out the way of actually doing it. So Snappy Snippet is an extension that adds a new tab in Chrome DevTools. When you have it, when you open DevTools, you can inspect any element on the page, then go to the Snappy Snippet tab and just click Extract, and it will extract both HTML and CSS related with this element. From there, you can send it to JSBin or CodePen, whatever, and it will just work. And well, it seemed like a jackpot, because many people really liked it, and till this day, I'm getting pull requests, issue reports. Seems like a lot of people are using it. So this is really great, and yeah, that's how the story of Snappy Snippets goes.
Yeah, if you haven't used it, it's a great tool for listeners out there. It's you can find it on GitHub. If I know, we'll put a link to it in the show notes as well. What kind of APIs did you sort of have to dive into to get Snappy Snippets to work? Because offhand, it's I'm trying to think through the process with, and I'm trying to ignore the fact that I previously looked at this code. So, like, how did you go about going? You know what? I really need to find, particularly the connected CSS, in a manner that is sane, because to me it sounds like that's just like a somewhat of a nightmare.
Yeah, so actually I think this started with a proof of concept that wasn't an extension, that was a snippet like bookmarklet, I believe, something that you can just run in console and will just work. Because actually, to extract HTML and CSS related with a single element, you don't have to use any special APIs. It's like getting computed styles for this element and its children, and then filtering this CSS properties that you will get back. Well, there are quite a lot of filters to get to a sane amount of CSS, but yeah, it worked. And then I thought, well, bookmarklets are kind of old, and I can use my DevTools or extensions knowledge to make it better. And then you just have to use Chrome extensions have DevTools API, which allows you to extend DevTools. And the easiest way to extend DevTools is to just add a new tab, in which tab you can do whatever. And from that tab, you can inject any scripts to the page, and that's basically what I'm doing. It's like the tab is running like the bookmarklet code in the current window or current tab, and gets the results back to the DevTools. So that's basically it. And yeah, MVP wasn't an extension.
And speaking of DevTools, DevTools has some pretty cool APIs. Particularly, you've been giving a talk recently around the remote debugging protocol. Why should developers care about the remote the remote debugging protocol? And what are some of the cool things you can do with it?
Well, this is something that blew my mind after I thought that I already know how DevTools work. So one day I found out that I started reading more about DevTools and how they actually work. And it turns out that this is a web app. So at DevTools, the UI that you use every day is just JavaScript, CSS, HTML. And it talks to the browser, which is, of course, native, over the debugging protocol. And the debugging protocol allows DevTools to do all the cool things that DevTools are doing, which is like, I don't know, putting breakpoints in scripts and making screenshots of the page, or getting timeline information, network information, etc., highlighting items. This is also nice. So there is an API that allows you to do all this stuff. And the fun thing is that from Chrome extensions, you can actually use this API. So you can, if you wish, you can build your own Chrome DevTools on the top of this API, and that have completely different API UI. But yeah, but that's just the one thing that you can do. There are many others. You can switch both ends. You can switch the front end of the front end or the back end. So you can switch the browser with something else. And yeah, this is really exciting because this is super powerful, and I have so many ideas what you can do with it. Just not enough time.
And it has a significant amount, like when we talk about the power within the remote debugging protocol, like there is a lot of power and quite a few methods in there that sort of give you the means to build what you want as a developer to make your sort of development experience better, if you so please.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I counted all the APIs that are there, and it's like 300 of them right now. So I just mentioned highlighting nodes and setting breakpoints, but there are many others, like everything that DevTools can do, you can do using this protocol. So you can imagine this is amazing and it's very powerful. And actually, we to make it, I found it kind of complicated to navigate over this API. It changes a lot, and it's so big that it was hard to navigate over it. And thankfully, like with each version of Chromium, there is a protocol JSON file that describes this API. But navigating over JSON file with 2,000 lines of code wasn't fun either. So together with Paul Irish and some other folks from Google, we built debugger protocol viewer. This is this nice little app that allows you to navigate and see what's actually possible with the debugging protocol. And yeah, we should definitely link to this so that everyone can see what's possible.
The show notes are going to be packed today with awesome links. It's so, I mean, one protocol, one browser, awesome, love it. Does it run in other browsers? I know that Mozilla has a remote debugging protocol as well. Are they the same thing?
Not really. They are not the idea is the same, but they are not compatible. So you cannot really talk over Chrome debugging protocol with Firefox. But some folks already thought about it and decided that you can build a translator that translates one protocol into another. So we have a couple of these adapters. Like it's possible for example, from Chrome DevTools to debug IE 11. It's possible to debug Safari. It's possible to debug Firefox. And from Firefox, it's possible to debug Chrome and Safari. So there are a couple of adapters that allow you to do that. Not sure if many people actually do it every day, but these adapters exist. And actually, Kenneth Ockenberg from Edge team, he's a project manager for Edge DevTools, has came up with the idea of has came up with Remote Debug initiative. It's an initiative that tries to create a common protocol for all the browsers, so that tools are DevTools are independent from the browser, and you can, if you prefer, for example, Firefox DevTools, you can use them to debug Chrome, debug Safari, and any other browser. So that would be, I don't know, perfect. And well, yeah, it's an idea, and it looks like at least IE team or Edge team is really thinking about it. So hopefully one day this will happen.
I think it's interesting too. I mean, when you think about where the web sort of started, or if you not even very long ago, where DevTools existed, where when we had, when Firebug, in my mind, Firebug really sort of kicked the wheels and said,
definitely.
let's do this. And I don't think Firebug gets enough credit for a lot of that initial work that they did to make web development to some extent fun again, or at least that's the way I look at it. So it's nice to see that there is a lot of conversation around the idea of sort of cross-functional tools that work across browsers, and I think that's, the sort of this extensible web that we've all kind of wanted for a long time and hoped for, and now finally we're sort of getting there. And I think that's pretty cool. You have built, on top of remote debugging, a pretty trick tool yourself now, and an alternative backend, if you will. You built Betwixt. Tell us a little bit about Betwixt, because it is awesome.
Thanks. So the idea, as I mentioned before, what you can do is you can switch front end, and for example, front end of this whole setup with DevTools in the front and browser in the back end, you can switch front end with some other tool, like for example, Selenium WebDriver is using Chrome debugging protocol to talk to the browser and run tests in it. But this is an example of switching the front end. And there are examples of switching the back end, where, for example, you can use DevTools to debug native Android applications. I think Facebook did it with the Stato project. You can also debug native iPhone applications, iOS applications with Pony Debugger. And of course, there is that many people probably use a Node Inspector, which allows you to use DevTools to debug Node server. So I started thinking, what else? What other backend we can have? And I decided to build something which it's basically a proxy, debugging proxy, and there are couple of such projects already exist, like I think JS Fido. Yeah, there are a couple of them, and what they allow you to do is capture traffic that comes from any application, not only browser, but for example, I don't know, Steam or iTunes, whatever. And you can capture it or look at it, debug it. And it's transparent for the application. And what I did is I took the network panel from Chrome DevTools and used it as a UI for my proxy application. And yeah, it seems like people loved it because reusing the AP, you're reusing the UI that people already know and use every day seemed like a good idea. And Chrome DevTools are pretty powerful, so it was just a matter of forking DevTools, removing all other panels, just leaving network panel, and then sending to the network panel all the information that I capture that go between any native app and the network. So yeah, in fact, it was pretty simple. I was kind of amazed that no one thought about it before. Right now, I'm working on adding HTTPS support because MVP supported only HTTP. Yeah, like listening or trying to be man in the middle in the HTTPS communication is a bit more tricky, but yeah, I'm getting there. There is already a pull request that waits to be merged.
So I mean, is the forking and getting started process on DevTools hard? Like I know that there's some talk about how to work on Chromium in general. I know Monica had written the post about getting your first pull request inside Chromium. But if you want to fork off DevTools and just work on them, is it so hard? Like, is it within the reason of your normal sort of I'm an average web developer who's doesn't have a lot of experience building for the lower level platform, if you will? Is it okay? Can you start tomorrow?
Well, I was kind of amazed that it's so simple. I guess. Like Paul Irish has this repo on GitHub, in which he keeps only the DevTools, because forking whole Chromium project where DevTools live is a mess. It's like 8 gigs of information and
piece of cake.
Yeah, exactly. So what Paul is trying to do is to get more people into Chrome DevTools development and make it easier. And one of the things that he already done is created a GitHub repo for just the DevTools. So it's like 26 meg, not 8 gig. So much better. And when you download it and look at the code, you will find out that it's super modular. Like, well, I guess that's what you would expect from Google engineers. It's just beautifully written, and it's easy to just removing panels from it was super easy. There's like one configuration file that tells Chrome DevTools which panels should be loaded. So everything lives in a separate folder and stuff like that. It was really easy to start digging into this.
And you have to know C++, right?
Not really. No. Thankfully not.
I like DevTools jokes. It's fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can take your JavaScript knowledge and just really dive in, can't you? Like it's really that accessible on top. And we'll put links to Paul's repo as well in the show notes so that everybody can get started with building tools tomorrow.
Yeah, at least have a look at this. It's like this huge, like tremendous application, as you can imagine, written with no framework whatsoever, and it still makes sense, and it still works, and it's still extendable. This is really amazing piece of code.
Yeah, I think people forget sometimes that when we all work in framework, like the web is full of frameworks these days. There's a new framework every week. I can't keep up with all of them, but yeah, you can actually write things without frameworks, and it's okay. Like life will go on. Like you'll be able to be productive.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes it's even easier. And if you are working on MVP, well, people would say that frameworks help you, kick stuff off. Like they give you quite a lot of stuff from the beginning, but well, I'm not quite sure. It's quite a lot of setup, and I prefer to go vanilla at first. And when I spot some patterns, I start thinking about adding a framework. So yeah, I think I agree with what Jake Archibald and Paul Lewis are saying, that for such small project like the extensions that I'm making, they are not huge. I mean, you should go vanilla, and it's really fun. And with ES6, it can be beautiful.
Yeah, ES6 is looking real nice right now.
Yeah.
So you speak a lot about DevTools. I've seen your talks; they're awesome. You talk about usage. What are some things about DevTools that developers simply don't know? Like, because there are a lot of like great sort of tips out there. I mean, Youre's got a whole thing of DevTools tips, and obviously there's the new section on developerslikeGoogle.com for DevTools stuff, and the new show that's coming out. Bacchus and Irish Ron. So, I mean, what are pieces that are missing though? Like, what do developers go, oh, I didn't know DevTools even did that? That would make their lives way easier.
Well, I think the first thing that most developers don't know about DevTools, even though that they use them every day, is just the web app, as we mentioned before. So when I detach DevTools and open up another DevTools to modify the first instance of DevTools, which you can do, and what actually DevTools developers do, it blows people's minds. Like, you can use DevTools to debug DevTools. It's like writing some language compiler in this language, this kind of thing. But yeah, this is stuff that most people don't know.
I remember Paul Irish gave a talk where he showed that feature off, and the crowd just went wild. Like, oh my God, I didn't know this was a thing. I'm incepting. Like, this was before Inception was a movie. Like, people were like, I don't even know what that is, but it's cool.
Right. Yeah, and this is quite awesome because, as I mentioned, this is a really well done app which works smoothly and feels native. So you can really learn a lot by just looking how they did it, how timeline works, how elements panel work, and yeah, this is kind of amazing and a good experience. Yeah.
In terms of features, you've built a lot of tools on top of DevTools. You've added panels or tabs into DevTools to sort of give it more functionality that you particularly wanted. That has been useful for a lot of developers out there. We've really entered into sort of a renaissance in terms of dev tooling in general for the web. I mean, there's lots of tooling out there now that does a lot of really cool things to give us really great performance across the board and makes sort of debugging complicated things relatively simple, or at least simpler than they used to be. Are there features in DevTools that you hear developers complain a lot about? I mean, as someone who gives talks about DevTools and shows people how to use them, I'm sure you also hear the complaints, like, oh, why doesn't DevTools do X? What are features out there that you hear that developers want but don't necessarily exist today?
Yeah, well, like, first thing is presentation of information. For many people, the panels like timeline and profiling, which talks about memory, are mysterious and they don't really understand what's happening there. They actually don't even touch them. They just use elements panel and console. And this is a hard problem. It's about presenting this huge amount of information in a way that's understandable for every developer, and it's getting better. A lot of smart people are thinking about it, but I still hear complaints about that. It's too complicated to start. It feels like you have to read a book before you even look at the timeline. So so that's one thing. The other thing is that people really want to emulate mobile devices one-to-one, which is kind of hard. I mean, we can emulate the screen. We can, with Chrome DevTools, we can emulate the connection. Like, we can set it to 2G and see how our web app works on 2G. But and also CPU scaling is coming, so you can slow down your CPU and see how it will work. But it's still kind of not the full experience. I don't know if we will ever get there, but for example, when you are trying to debug or see how the app will work on iPhone, and you are doing it in Chrome, it's it's kind of impossible. The rendering engine is different. The available APIs are different. So it would be super perfect to have real one-to-one emulation in the browser, but not sure if this will ever happen.
Yeah, I think that's a very hard problem.
Yeah.
I agree. You can do so much, but you're not necessarily going to get all the way there. And at the end of the day, if you really have to ship something of quite large capacity, you probably should test it on a device, which is easier these days, admittedly, within Chrome. I mean, now you can do remote device inspection through USB. That is quite nice.
Which, by the way, also works thanks to the remote debugging protocol. Because
isn't it a lovely thing? It's everywhere.
Right. Yeah, it's great.
So I agree. I don't think you can get to. I don't think you can get to one-to-one. I mean, at that point, I suppose you could just start disabling APIs that don't exist on other platforms.
Yeah.
But then again, you're also having to produce bugs that other platforms have, where I can have an alpha channeled WebM file that plays fine on your desktop, but you push it to Chrome Android, it doesn't. Or some other strange anomalies that are in the bug tracker, but otherwise, how do you duplicate that one-to-one? And should you put in the work for that? I don't know that you should. Like, again, it's a convenience more than anything else, and it's gotten better.
Sure.
There's a new version of the sort of mobile view port testing and device emulation coming out in Chrome now. I think it's in the beta channel now. I think, yes, maybe. I forget which version we're on at the moment.
So yeah, actually, the browsers. If you currently in the company I work for, we support only modern browsers, which is great, and you can get away with a lot of stuff if you support only modern browsers, because they are pretty similar and there are not that many quirks, and this is great. But still, there are some issues. Like lately, we found out the hard way that Windows Phone doesn't support, or IE on Windows Phone doesn't support template element. So this was a sad day, because polyfill for template element as well, it's complicated. So it still happens, but it's much better now. But I guess emulated device labs are a thing now, and everyone is building them, and this is for a reason. Everyone wants to really test their app before deploying. We are also in the process of building one, and if you support, for example, the company I work for also supports the emerging markets like India and China. So they have pretty strange phones that you cannot really buy in Europe or States, I guess. And yeah, like testing on these phones is crucial for us, and we have to do it manually, probably.
Yeah, no, and those I've had a similar problem because we also work in some of those markets, and yeah, it can be a little troublesome, because all of a sudden the great tools that you have don't necessarily account for these systems that are strange forks of WebKit, or I saw a strange fork of Blink the other day that it made no sense to me whatsoever, and I don't know where it came from. That was on a device, and you're going, okay, and it had some strange APIs were missing that should not have been missing. So
yeah,
you run into some of that, and then all of a sudden you were really wishing that remote debugging protocol worked everywhere. Yeah,
that's true, but yeah. That kind of reminds me about one more project that Kenneth Ackenberg did. It also uses remote debugging protocol, but what it does, it allows you to debug browsers that are on different room, different country, different different, yeah, the other side of the world, because what you can do basically is open DevTools in your locally on your computer and connect with he built an extension that allows you to connect with the browser, which is somewhere else, and debug it. So this is useful, and this would be great for troubleshooting issues that your clients run into. But of course, this doesn't really work with other browsers than Chrome. So we are not yet there.
Hopefully we will be there. I mean, there is a lot of conversation around, remote debugging at this point, primarily because of the device forums and everything else that sort of popped up, I think. Because there is a fairly wide range of devices with varying sort of power requirements and screens. And, unfortunately, we live in a world where connectivity can be a little shoddy on your handhelds, particularly, depending on where you're at in the world. So I think that, hopefully we're moving in the right direction, which I think we are.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Looking at DevTools now and just, 5 years ago, this is huge progress that we did. And it's really amazing how useful DevTools are nowadays, and how they adapt to the situation, how they, switch the focus to mobile. And actually, I even had plans that device mode will be default view, because more than 50% of the traffic on the internet is now from mobile devices. So we should really start thinking mobile first.
Yeah, totally. I think it makes sense. I haven't seen any stats that refute that sort of approach. Mobile, to say that mobile's been here for a while, I don't want to say we're catching up, but to some extent we are. I mean, a lot of developers are still learning the ins and outs of what makes, what the major differences are. Like, you don't have the RAM that you did. You don't, you have battery constraints. You need to understand how your network requests handle on, why you group them and don't spin up a radio every, 10 seconds.
Right.
So
definitely.
It's a platform that is very much the web, but it has a different set of constraints.
Yeah, and actually about the battery, it's a huge concern, and people don't really understand it or know how to work with it. Like, developers don't know how to reduce it. And I talked with guys from Facebook, I think it was 2 years ago at Google I/O, and they mentioned that they have the emerging markets are so important for them that they have this huge setup with phones used in India and China, and they have they actually check voltage on the batteries. So whenever they release a new Facebook version, they check if it's not consuming more battery. So they are actually monitoring it, and this blew my mind that they went so far to control it and to keep it down. And this is amazing. And we started talking about how we can bring this to DevTools. The same way, we have this little icon that shows you if tab is loud, if it's producing sound. So we started thinking about having this similar icon, but for battery consumption on laptops when they're running from battery. It would be great. I mean, this would be a start, and for everyone to see that some apps can use significant amounts of power. And this would be nice. Also, getting it to DevTools and highlighting issues that your web app has, like, I don't know, it has too many animations or does too many things in the background. I don't know. I'm not really sure what takes a lot of your battery. So it would be great to surface these information.
Well, and I think it goes to that sort of the exposing that lower level to DevTools to be able to say, oh, I can go pull this information, understand. I mean, to some extent, we know, like, we have Chrome Task Manager, for instance, right? We know, what's consuming memory, what's consuming CPU. When you start to talk about battery, though, there is quite a long list of things that really sort of can be detrimental to your battery experience, primarily around radios. I mean,
Yeah,
spinning up
definitely.
Wi-Fi, spinning up any sort of 4G or 3G connection where you know, people forget there's latency in that. It takes a long time to, you know, when you have to warm it up, and then now it's going to consume power, and now you've made one request and you've shut it down, and then you've pinged it again 3 seconds later. You know, you're taking that hit against that battery, and it would be nice to know that. I think, you know, the tools are better now to sort of help us understand. I mean, you know, it's like looking through the network panel and saying, oh, well, I'm firing 27 gazillion things, or I've got 17 WebSockets open, and I wonder why it's eating so much away, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Especially in the world where, you know, CPUs or mobile phones are getting more and more powerful, but batteries don't seem to catch up. We are still using the same designs as we used 10 years ago. So this is kind of sad, and it doesn't look it will improve in the near future. So we really have to start looking into this.
And yeah, I think that if, you know, and I know you know as well that, you know, there's a lot of conversation around this for sure, in terms of how do you adequately calculate it if you can, and then how do you, you know, warn developers. And a lot of the dev tools, Chrome and even Mozilla's new dev tools and Firefox, like they do a significantly better job across the board of trying to warn you to not do foolish things with your code. And I think that's helpful for a lot of people who are getting started in web development or who are making the jump into other platforms where it's just not your desktop. Because it's nice that my WebGL-based, you know, thing will run on my 970 in my workstation, but the reality is that that's not the same experience as you may get when you're running on, you know, your mobile handset.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm so excited about CPU throttling that came to Chrome DevTools. This is really great. You can slow down your CPU, like simulate slowing down your CPU for a single tap. Right now, it's kind of abstract. It's like it says you can slow it down 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, but it doesn't. It's hard to, you know, understand which of these values are equivalents of mobile phone, but they are already working on making it more understandable. So this is great, and yeah, this is one more thing that makes it easier to emulate and work with mobile devices, which is perfect.
So I mean, a lot of this stuff happens in the open. You know, we're talking about stuff, and this is not, you know, this is not insider baseball, so to speak, as we would say. This is stuff that's, you know, fairly in the open. These conversations happen on GitHub. They happen on the Chromium tracker. If developers want to help make DevTools better, I mean, are these the places to go? Where else should they go if they want to be involved in these sort of up and coming features within DevTools?
Yeah. So. There is this meeting that happens on IRC. I had to use IRC to be on these meetings. I was so determined. So there are these meetings that happen on the, I think it's Chromium channel, but we can link to this for later on. So these are this meeting every Monday. Besides that, we have a Chromium Slack, which is a bit more modern way of communication. And what else? You should really, if you're a developer, you should really, you know, get a nightly version of the browser you are using. I'm, for example, using most of the time Chrome Canary for development. This way, I see all the new features that are coming to Chrome DevTools before they hit stable, so I can play with new stuff. But it also gives me an opportunity to, you know, look for bugs, and there are plenty, I must say. I mean, it's really good software, as I mentioned before. It's great software, but it's just software. So there are a lot of bugs, and I'm already over. I think I reported like 110 bugs to Chrome DevTools, and yeah, this is the great way to see how DevTools team is working, how fast they are responding to your bug reports. This is great thing to see. Besides that, you should also follow Umar, who is creating this awesome GIFs showing off new stuff. DevTools stuff. Of course, Paul Irish, Eddie Osmani, these guys, yeah, you should really follow them, and if you want to be up to date. But it's also pretty cool to follow like other, I think by now, every other DevTools have Twitter accounts, like Firefox DevTools, Edge DevTools kicked their like yesterday, I think. So it's good to see what other browsers are up to, because these features are moved from one browser to another. As when someone finds out, gets some good idea for a feature, it quite quickly jumps from one DevTools to another, and this is also pretty cool.
Yeah, it really benefits the web community as a whole, because beforehand, as a lot of us folks who've worked on the web for a long time remember, like it wasn't always that way. You had to wait a long time for certain browsers to get DevTools or a tool in general.
Yeah, I mean, I remember one example, like Firefox DevTools got this really nice animation, like panel that allows you to edit animations and inspect animations, and this was missing in Chrome, and it was like a matter of, I don't know, maybe 2 months when it hit Chrome, and right now it's really well done, tool that's also in Chrome, so this is really great.
Yeah, the cross-pollination has made it significantly better to be a web developer, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because you can actually get work done, as opposed to going, I want to put alerts everywhere.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess we all use console logs, still use console logs for stuff. But yeah, it's changed a lot since Firebug times or pre-Firebug times. Yeah, it's amazing how nice it's to be a web developer nowadays, front-end developer.
Yeah, it really is fantastic. So we're running up against time, Conrad. What question have I failed to absolutely ask, which I'm sure there are dozens, but what if you had wanted to tell the audience something that I totally missed, what would that thing be?
Well, I mean, I really invite everyone to take a look how DevTools work, and maybe start using Canary and report bugs. And maybe after that, you will decide to contribute to DevTools. It's not that complicated. I had a session with Jason Lester from Etsy. He introduced me to the whole idea. So there are people who actually can, pair code with you and introduce you to contributing to DevTools, which is pretty awesome. And that's the way you can feel that you are contributing back to this amazing tool that you use every day, and you are part of it. This is a really good feeling, and I invite everyone to do it, to try it.
Yeah, the community is really nice. I want to echo that. The community around DevTools for Chrome and Firefox, like they really are committed to making our development experience better, and they welcome contributions. So definitely take a look. We'll put a whole bunch of links in the show notes so you can find where all these places are at. So do take a look at that. Beyond that, Conrad, well, thank you so much for being on the show today. Where can people find you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, so I'm like in all the usual places like GitHub, Twitter, and Gmail, I guess, under KDZWINEL, which is kind of complicated. So
I will also put it in the show notes.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you so much for having me. It's really my favorite podcast. So
we appreciate that. I know Eric wanted to be here, but he's been busy lately, and I know I think Danny's on a plane. So we appreciate you greatly for being on. Thank you so much, Conrad.
Thanks.
And this has been another episode of the Web Platform Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Rombaro, signing off.